Deze week werd bekend dat de farmaceutische industrie voor een recordbedrag aan boetes heeft gekregen. Voor onder andere het verstrekken van onvolledige informatie. Die boetes gaan de Deense hoogleraar Peter Gotzsche nog lang niet ver genoeg. Big Pharma maakt zich schuldig aan misdadige praktijken, zegt hij.
We have allowed the drug industry to become so powerful that the biggest drug companies in the world, they have a turnover that is far larger than the gross national product of most countries in this world.
Klokkenluider Gotzsche was in Nederland voor de presentatie van zijn boek Dodelijke medicijnen en georganiseerde misdaad. We zochten hem op in Amsterdam.
When the mafia was really big in America, they tried to buy everybody with an influence. Chief of police, the mayor, you name it, just about everybody. That's the same the drug industry does.
Peter Gotzsche, een man met een vriendelijk gezicht, maar zijn woorden zijn snoeihard. Ik ontmoet hem in een hotel op het Rembrandtplein. Bij aankomst wordt hij gefotografeerd voor de krant. Media staan in de rij voor een interview met hem. Hij is wereldwijd bekend om zijn strijd tegen de farmaceutische industrie.
It's a very dirty business.
Ooit begon hij als artsenbezoeker bij een grote pillenfabrikant en zag van binnenuit hoe Big Pharma te werk gaat. Hoe de winst belangrijker is dan de veiligheid van patiënten. 20 jaar geleden besluit hij een internationaal netwerk op te richten dat onafhankelijk onderzoek doet naar de effecten van medicijnen.
I'm a scientist. I try to change things by educating the public. That's why I write books, to wake people up to realizing how much corruption there is in healthcare and how our drug research and marketing is unreliable because everything is controlled by a drug industry that can earn billions by cheating with the data and by lying in their marketing, which is what we see.
Gotzsche beschrijft in zijn boek in detail hoe die marketing van Big Pharma te werk gaat. Eerst wordt er een ziekte bedacht. Vooral de psychiatrie leent zich hier goed voor. En daarna wordt er een doelgroep gecreëerd. I'm taking Winnie the Pooh because you wrote in your own book that this little piglet has a generalized anxiety disorder.
These popular characters could easily get a psychiatric diagnosis.
And what do you want to show or to tell by giving these examples?
If all of us were tested with these various checklists, most of us, by far most of us, would get at least one psychiatric diagnosis. I have tested some of these checklists for ADHD, mania, depression on myself and 7 successful people, 6 researchers and a science journalist. And guess what? All 8 of us got at least 1 diagnosis and some got 2.
So you should be on pills then?
Yeah, according to how psychiatry works, all 8 of us should be on pills and we are all normal, healthy, successful people.
Ik laat hem een reportage zien over de farmaceutische industrie die Brandpunt eerder uitzond. Do you mind? Watch it? Ik ben benieuwd naar zijn reactie op de werkwijze van Big Pharma in Nederland.
Bent u onrustig? Friemelt u veel met uw handen? Voelt u zich prikkelbaar? Misschien heeft u wel ADHD.
Doe de ADHD-zelftest. De uitslag is gewoon, u moet naar uw dokter.
De reportage die we laten zien gaat over de verkoop van een medicijn genaamd Concerta. Het is een soort Ritalin voor volwassenen met ADHD. In de reportage zien we dat de expert in Nederland op dit gebied het middel aanprijst. De beste behandeling, die veilig is en goed onderzocht, is medicatie voor ADHD.
Bastards.
In de reportage wordt duidelijk dat de expert banden heeft met de farmaceutische industrie en ook de behandelrichtlijnen bepaalt. De overheid laat dit toe. What do you think of this report? This was broadcasted a year ago.
It is very shocking. You have a huge problem in Holland when your Minister of Health says that industry-supported guidelines are okay. They are not okay. And it's not okay when people with a financial conflict of interest to the manufacturer recommends exactly the same drug in the guidelines. Studies have shown that in the long term, ADHD drugs are harmful Animal studies and human studies, there are very few long-term human studies, but those that have been made, and the animal studies tell us that these drugs can create permanent brain damage. They not only change the brain in the short term, it can be permanent changes. So it's very serious.
De pillen in de reportage zijn dus gevaarlijk voor de gezondheid, maar mogen wel gewoon worden voorgeschreven. Het is een pepmiddel. Al jaren probeert de farmaceutische industrie deze pillen te slijten voor allerlei kwalen. Nu dus ADHD bij volwassenen.
There is a saying that it's far easier to create a new disease than to invent a new drug. And this is true. One of the reasons is that all drugs have side effects. So in these blinded trials where half of the patients get a placebo that looks like the active drug, these trials are not adequately blinded because the drug has side effects. So many patients and doctors have guessed whether a patient is on active drug and placebo. And when that is the case, both doctors and patients tend to exaggerate the benefit of that drug. This is a psychological phenomenon. If you, for example, put something in the placebo that also gives people side effects, this has been done for depression pills. And guess what? There was absolutely no effect when there was something in the placebo that gave people side effects, because then they couldn't break the blinding. So this is why we have so many ineffective drugs on the market.
Er is dus veel mis met het onderzoek naar de werking van pillen, zegt Gotzsche. We kijken onze reportage nog even verder. Er wordt verteld dat van de 27 Europese experts er 17 banden hebben met de farmaceutische industrie. Deze groep bepaalt de richtlijnen waar dokters en psychiaters hun behandeling op baseren.
In your book, you describe doctors as highly influenceable.
Yeah.
And maybe eager for money or status.
Yeah, and then they are also naive. They know too little of what goes on behind the scenes. That's also why I wrote my book, to explain that to people, that it's a very dirty business.
But why would doctors do it? I mean, they became a doctor not for the money.
Well, they believe drugs are better than they are and have far fewer side effects than they have, because the information that is available to them was produced by the drug industry. So they actually don't know, really, the extent of the harms they are causing by using far too many drugs.
Why is it organized crime?
In my little country, more than 1,000 doctors are either on an advisory board of a company or a consultant to a company. More than 1,000 doctors. And we are not talking about junior doctors here. We are talking about professors and chairs of department, chief physicians and so on. Does the industry need more than 1,000 advisors? No, they don't. This is a soft form of corruption. They buy loyalty.
Het zijn grote woorden. Dokters zijn naïef of worden omgekocht, zegt Gotzsche. En ook de geneesmiddelenautoriteiten, die moeten toezien dat er veilige medicijnen op de markt komen, grijpen volgens hem nauwelijks in.
The idea that the drug agencies ensure that we have safe drugs is completely wrong, because if that were the case, our drugs would not be the third leading cause of death after heart disease and cancer. This says more than anything that we have a system that is dysfunctional. Our drug agencies allow far too many dangerous drugs on the market, and then they think that by issuing warnings and contraindications and all sorts of things, doctors will do what is expected of them. But doctors can't do that. They cannot handle more than 1,000 warnings if they use many drugs, for example. So they make a lot of errors without knowing it.
Zijn boodschap is keihard. Niemand beschermt ons tegen de leugens van de farmaceutische industrie.
Big Pharma, it's part of their business model to commit organized crime, because they commit these same crimes again and again. Fraud, for example, is committed again and again by the big companies.
How?
For example, AstraZeneca said that their antipsychotic drug quetiapine was better than the old drug haloperidol. it was the opposite. So when people got access to internal company documents, it was the opposite. So you can turn black into white and white into black, and it happens all the time.
And they don't stop?
No, they don't stop because it's very profitable to lie to us.
How can we stop this?
We doctors can say no to any type of industry money or industry favors like meals or Congress travel or whatever. And of course we should say no to lecture at meetings that the industry is sponsoring. And we should say no to meet with industry salespeople, because it has been documented that industry marketing is very harmful for public health. So we shouldn't talk to these people. And politicians should put a ban on all advertisements and all marketing of drugs, just like they did for tobacco, because it kills not quite as many people, but it's not far below what tobacco kills. So we should put a ban on marketing of drugs. These drugs that are good, they will be used anyhow. We don't need marketing for that.
Volgens Gotzsche zijn er dus 2 dingen noodzakelijk om het tij te keren. Stoppen met de marketing en onafhankelijk onderzoek organiseren.
What we need is all drug trials that involve patients should be a public enterprise. The industry could pay for them, but they should have nothing to do with them. So they should be done, designed, analyzed, and published without industry influence. And then all the raw data should be made publicly available. And why? Because then other researchers can analyze the data for themselves and see whether they agree or whether they think the original researchers made an error or were too positive in their analysis or so on. That's what true science is about. That other researchers can check, is this right or wrong? We don't do that for drugs. The industry does everything. We are supposed to trust them, although we know we can't trust them. So it's a sick system.
Heldere taal van klokkenluider Gotzsche. Inmiddels zijn ook de Nederlandse behandelrichtlijnen voor ADHD bij volwassenen officieel gepubliceerd. En u raadt het al, de aanbevolen behandeling, pillen genaamd Concerta.
That was it.
That was really shocking.
De reportage over de ADHD-pillen die we eerder uitzonden kunt u terugvinden op onze site.